further ado, we are going to start. We're going to have a group conversation up here, and then towards the end, we are going to open it up to a Q&A from the audience, and there will be a mic passed around, and we will be good to go. Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Yep. I need a little bit more energy than that. Ready? There we go. All right. Directly to my left is Kirsten Watson. Kirsten just completed her third season as part of the Dodger broadcast team as a reporter and host, contributing to Sportsnet LA's game broadcast and pre- and post-game coverage on both TV and radio. In the off-season, Kirsten serves as a game day reporter and host for the Los Angeles Rams and hosts Monday Night Football on Channel 5 in the UK, an international broadcast partnership with the NFL Network. Previously, she spent 2 years as a reporter with Sportsnet LA for the Los Angeles Lakers, Los Angeles Sparks, and South Bay Lakers, while also co-hosting the network's Lake Show studio program. She graduated with her master's degree in broadcast from the Columbia Journalism School and completed her undergraduate degree at Columbia while also playing on the volleyball team. Welcome, Kirsten. Thank you for coming. Next up, we have Jessica Mendoza. Mendoza joined ESPN in 2007 and the Dodger broadcast team in 2022. As the first woman to serve as an analyst for nationally televised MLB games in 2015, she has become a staple for ESPN's Major League Baseball coverage by appearing on Baseball Tonight, SportsCenter, Get Up, and First Take. Jessica has provided an analysis for the Women's College World Series, Men's College World Series, and the Little League World Series, while also contributing content to ESPNW. She is a two-time softball Olympian, earning a gold medal in the Athens Games. Absolutely. She also was on the U.S. Women's National Team from 2001 to 2010. In 2019, she was inducted into the National Softball Hall of Fame. She graduated from Stanford with a Bachelor of Arts degree in American Studies in 2002 and a Master's in Social Sciences and Education in 2003, where she was named a four-time first-team All-American for the softball team. Welcome, Jessica. Next up to my left, we have Brooke Cersosimo. Brooke has contributed to NFL.com since 2015 as the primary writer of ghostwritten content. She is the creator of Next Woman Up, a written series started in 2021 that spotlights women who are shaping and influencing the NFL today. Prior to joining the NFL, Brooke worked for 3 years as a sports editor and reporter at the Daily Republic in Mitchell, South Dakota, and was named the 2015 SDNS Outstanding Young Journalist. She graduated from Southern Utah University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Communication with a journalism emphasis. She was also a member of the gymnastics team and was just inducted this year into the Hall of Fame at her university. Rounding out our panelists is Nischelle Turner, who serves as the co-host of the 7-time Emmy Award-winning news magazine Entertainment Tonight. She joined ET as a correspondent in 2014 and was named a co-host in 2021. As a winner of 6 Emmys herself, Nischelle served as a contributor for CNN for both CNN Newsroom, New Day, and CNN Tonight, while also hosting and producing CBS's summer hit series Secret Celebrity Renovation, which just kicked off this summer. Highly suggest. She also co-hosts The Big Podcast with Shaq. Nischelle often lends her voice to entertainment and political news shows and also covers the Grammys, Golden Globes, and Oscars. She worked for WEHT in Indiana in 1998, Fox in New Orleans in 2000, and Fox in LA in 2004, covering Hurricane Katrina and its aftermath. As an avid sports fan, Nischelle's passion came in handy when she joined Fox NFL Sunday as a sideline reporter in 2007, and also covered Major League Baseball and basketball. She graduated from the University of Missouri, where she earned her bachelor's degree in journalism and broadcast news. Welcome. Let's give one big round of applause for our panelists here today. Thank you so much for being here. Well, those were some amazing bios. I don't know about you guys. That was wonderful. So we're going to start here with Kirsten. As the Dodgers team reporter, you endured one of the longest seasons in professional sports. We start with spring training in February, we go through regular season, and then we go through postseason that hopefully all the way ends at the end of October with a World Series trophy. During that time, football season starts. So not only do you serve as a Rams game day host and reporter, but you also serve as a host and on-air talent for the NFL Network. Let's talk about how you juggle both sports at the same time for such a long period of the year and the prep work that goes into it and just how you go about your everyday job.
Yeah, it's challenging. I'd be lying if I was sitting here. I'm like, it's such a breeze. No, it is one of the hardest decisions I think I actually made for myself. But when I came into baseball, actually Jeannie said something really powerful out there about just opportunities that come and you may not kind of expect for them to come. That's exactly what happened for me in this job. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine, honestly, working in baseball, let alone being a sideline reporter for a baseball team. I wanted to be in sports. I was working in sports. I was working for the NFL for, I believe, 7 years at that time when this job came about. But the previous reporter, she decided her time was done here and she wanted to move on to something else. And I was on the Lakers coverage at that time. And my boss at Spectrum, he called me and he was like, hey, so something has happened and I think that you should step in. And I was like, yeah, but like I don't really know anything about baseball. I know like 3 strikes you're out. I mean, I knew I'd gone to games. I knew about the team, but I was what you would call a high level couch fan. Yeah, an armchair fan. Like I watched it on the TV, but I don't know much about the I watched the postseason. That was exciting to me. But my agents were like, yeah, we're not going to tell you what you can and cannot do, but you can't say no to this job. And my mom was like, yeah, no, you've been saying you finally want like this opportunity you want to have. I was at that time working full-time for the NFL, working part-time for Spectrum Sports, not getting my reps. So it was and then I had this grand idea to compete in a beauty pageant. So there was that. So it was just like nonstop. I was going from one job to another and burning myself out entirely. But I was doing it because I had this dream and I really wanted to make it. And I kept getting a little bit of a bite here and it'd be like, all right, I believe in you. And it's like, okay, but like, do you believe in me enough to give me a full-time job? And they're like, I mean, like kind of, but like not really. So it was just, you're constantly fighting for it. So it came to a time in which the full-time job presented itself, but it was in a new sport that I had to learn, and I also was going to have to learn at a high level. As much as Spectrum Sportsnet LA is a regional broadcast, they carry themselves like a national broadcast. This is Los Angeles. This is one of the largest markets in the world, and there's an expectation coming into this job. So we might get into that later, but that was a challenge in itself. Now, when it comes to kind of managing all of these different sports, as I mentioned, going into baseball, I didn't want to lose my footing in football. So I made it a purpose for myself to whatever opportunities I could have in football, I wanted to have them because I wanted to be someone who continued to be well-rounded amongst multiple sports. Basketball, I realized I had to somewhat let it go just because I literally kill myself if I did basketball, football, as well as baseball. Because I didn't realize coming into baseball just how demanding it is. As Allie mentioned, I start with the team literally like February 15th when spring training opens for pitchers and catchers. I am in Arizona up until the end of spring training. I come back for a few days for what typically is our freeway series. Then we'll have maybe a day off, and then I am gone with the wind. Like it is just, with the amount of games that we have, I travel with the Dodgers. The only games that I have off are national broadcasts, in which, lucky for the Dodgers, we do typically have a lot of them because they're a very good team and a lot of coverage. We have a great fan base, so we get high viewership numbers. So you take into that in consideration, but usually even if it is an off day, we're probably traveling in a different city, so my off day would be there. All of that happens. Then we get to September and football season kicks off. So that means if I have an off day, I'm working the NFL. So that means I don't have an off day essentially for all of September into October. I have to manage the postseason travel, so that means sometime, or usually the regular season travel I'll really take over. So if for example, I had a Monday night show here in LA. I got on the last flight out to meet the team in Denver to then work a doubleheader on the next day in Colorado to start our final leg of the regular season. So that meant like I just worked straight for, I don't know, like 21 days probably. Like it's just, that's the life I chose. It means a lot of sacrifice. But for me personally, it's worth it. So it is a decision that I made. I also, there's sometimes a pressure. I think we're young and in our careers and just making it. I'm 30 years old. I recognize there's still a lot of time ahead of me, but I think there are times, especially as women in sports, we feel like we can't say no to things. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. It probably is not my best quality, but I do feel like I'm still in that space in which, you know, I don't have children, I'm not married, I have the freedom to say yes to a lot of things. And I do that, for better or for worse, again. But I think for me personally, I really did not want to lose being in football. So I personally chose to make the sacrifices to just work a lot. But I love it. And yes, it's hard and it's time consuming and I can't be at friends' birthday parties. I can't go to a lot of places half the time. But for me, it's worth it and I do get to live out the dream of mine. So it's all, I find a way is the answer to that question.
Absolutely. Lots of multitasking, right?
Yes, yes.
Hi, Jess.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Great. You've had a lot of firsts in your career. Let me just tell you this rap sheet. 2015, first female to serve as an analyst for a nationally televised MLB game. Also 2015, first female analyst for a nationally televised MLB postseason game. 2015, first female analyst for a men's College World Series telecast. And also in 2020, the first woman to serve as a World Series game analyst on national radio with ESPN Radio. And those are only 4 of, I'm sure, a lengthy list. You broke into spaces that women had not explored before. You broke ceilings, you blazed the trail for a lot of us here. What was one of the biggest things you learned? And what did you feel your experience helped kind of guide you in the way that your career is now? Let's talk about, you know, breaking those glass ceilings and how maybe it was nerve-wracking, how much prep you had to do, the mentality you had to have, the prep you had to do going into all of those broadcasts with different sports and things like that. If we could just kind of talk about that, I think that'd be super beneficial for everyone.
I think even every time I hear like 2015, I'm like, that's 8 years ago. Like why was 2015? Like even in 2015, I was shocked to even think like there hasn't been another female analyst doing a major league, like what have we been doing, baseball? Like come on, like let's go. And I think I was more shocked, and I knew so many women, actually not so many, I felt like it was so many because they meant everything. So Doris Burke involved in the NBA, Julie Foudy, you know, with women's and men's soccer. There were women out there doing this, and I'm like, how has this not happened in the sport that I'm a part of? So I was very excited, but part of my heart hurt. I was like, you know, 2015, and honestly even now, it just feels very late in the game. I'm not complaining about it. It was just like, well, let's bust down this door, like knock down all of it, and like, come on, ladies, like let's go, because we're gonna kick some butt and do this like together. So I initially was surprised, but then I think the hardest thing was more of just feeling pressure not to screw up. Like, okay, like I'm here, and that was the one thing I told my boss at ESPN was like, I think this is an awesome idea, but please let's not do some one-off check the box. Put in the Latina, we did it. I was very adamant, if we're gonna do this, you're hiring me because I'm good. And if I'm not ready, like then don't give me this first. I don't wanna be the first unless I'm here to stay. And I had a great person at ESPN that's no longer there, and he was like, no, that's exactly what we're gonna do. And I was like, really? Okay, because it kind of feels like a check the box, you know, because that's where I had seen women have those opportunities up until then. And I think I'm very grateful because that helped me know, like, I'm not just gonna get this one game, you know? And I still felt that pressure. And I still do, you know, doing Dodger games. You know, that's another first. There's no women that have been in the booth, you know, sitting with Joe and, you know, gosh, Oral Hershiser, who I looked up to growing up in the 80s in LA, and I'm like, I can't screw this up. And that can be suffocating. And there's times like it feels so great and this is awesome, but there's other times where it just feels like I can't even breathe. And so that's something I continue to navigate, especially early on, because you start to listen to a lot, you feel like I can't say something wrong, and I'm gonna say something wrong. I'm gonna screw up a name or say something about a pitch that actually wasn't doing that, and then I just beat myself up. So I learned early because I stopped being myself. And I think when we're trying to think about saying the perfect thing ahead of it, I know I'm good at what I do when I just let loose and be myself. And that's me. But when I'm trying to be perfect, which is really hard because I'm so far from perfect, that it's a lot of like filtering and trying to think through things before something actually comes out. That I was like, I can't do this. I just started to be very quiet in my job and not very good. So that was something that I think still I feel to this day, but I've learned to just, if I mess up, it's because I'm being myself, and that's so much more accepting than trying to be something I'm not.
Great answer. Love that. Absolutely. Hi, Brooke. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
If you haven't already seen before, Brooke started this incredible written series on NFL.com called Next Woman Up. She features, interviews, and highlights different women within football in all different areas. Officials, media members, people in the front office, offensive assistants, I believe was one of them as well, dietitians, the list goes on and on. When you decided to write that series, how did you think of that idea? What did it look like? Did you go to your boss and say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is, here's what it will look like. Kind of walk us through that process and also why that concept was really important to you.
Sure. So in the NFL, we get probably a month of time in the summer to brainstorm different ideas between OTAs and training camp starting. So you hear of, there's a few NFL owners out there. Sarah Thomas, the first female referee, she's really been in the spotlight of the last few years. And I just thought, there's got to be more women out there doing things. I Googled most influential women in the NFL, and there was one article that came up, and it said 15 influential women. So I clicked on it, and it was 15. And it was, I think, in 2015, the article came out. And I'm just thinking, there's 15 of us? That's it? That can't be. So I went to my boss and I said, I think even if it's the bare minimum of a series, we have to start finding women that are involved in the NFL because they're out there, whether that's at the club levels, in the league office, as you said, on the field. There can't be just 15. I kept saying that in my head. And so I pitched it to my boss, and he's like, I think this is a great idea. And so we really went over it and kind of what it would look like. Wrote up a summary, and we have a booking team at the NFL Network, and I took it to them and I said, I would like to work with you guys and have you help me because they have relationships with all of the teams. And so I basically just sent a list, and I was like, if we're going to start this, we're going to go to the very top, the most famous women out there in our sport. And so I put names like Hannah Gordon with the 49ers, Charlotte Jones at Dallas Cowboys, Kim Pagula and with the Buffalo Bills. And I was like, we're going to get eyes on this. We have to go to the top. And so those three actually were some of the few firsts that we interviewed, and it's a very simple execution. It's just a Q&A, but you kind of hear their rise through the ranks in their own voice. So it's not me being like, she did all these great things, but it was tell me the struggles or not, the challenges that you had to face to get to rise to where you're at today. So yeah, I've been doing that for 2 years now, and the thing I think I've learned the most is that no path is linear. If you have, that idea of I want to be a general manager of a team, that doesn't mean that you can't start in the social media department. I mean, it doesn't. And I think that is one of the most important things that I've learned, and to just be willing to collaborate and learn outside of what you think that you should be doing or what you want to be doing. Sometimes, as you mentioned and as Jeannie mentioned, that's not always the path that you should take, and it can be the path, but just to kind of be open. But yeah, I think one of the other things with this series is that, I swung for the fences of the first couple to get, some of the highest women in our league to do these interviews, but I've also interviewed people who had just started at their position. Shelly Harvey, she's with the Atlanta Falcons, and she just was hired full-time as an area scout in June, and I just interviewed her. So it's important for everyone to know that, yes, some people have been in the league for 25 years and we're just hearing about them now, but it's also important to know that, the new people coming in, they have gone through just the same to get to where they are, and kind of what that looks like in today's world, because it's much different in the 80s than it is, in 2023, so.
Absolutely. Highly suggest everyone checking out her articles. They are wonderful. Hi, Nischelle.
Hello.
Thanks so much for joining us
Thanks for
today.
having me.
You are the first Black woman to co-host Entertainment Tonight on CBS. You also host Secret Celebrity Renovation. You host coverage of many award shows like the Grammys, Golden Globes, and the Oscars. How do you stay prepared for all of that? That is so many things to encompass. And also, maybe we can touch on the importance of being versatile as well. A lot of different things kind of.
Yeah. Well, for me, that's the number one question, because I think that sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions about what we all do here on this stage, but also about what I do, because people look at entertainment a lot of times and think I just jump on a red carpet and everything's really cute and my hair and makeup's done. But the reality is, every interview you see me do, every time you see me on a red carpet or doing award show coverage, there is, on the average, at least 7 hours, 8 hours of prep time that I do to put into everything. Whether it's watching all of the series, I read every book that we get sent when I'm doing the interview. I don't go in without having read the books. I don't go in without having really studied people. I collaborate with my producers on questions and how we craft this interview and what we want out of it. So there's a lot of prep work that goes in to everything. So I like when people know that. No, it's not just a cute job. And there are times when we travel so much, I'm in the airport with a coat over my head, tracking things in the corner before I run on a flight, because it has to be done. And so that stuff happens all the time. But my mother, I learned my love for baseball from my mother. She was the ultimate baseball fan, and I grew up at Busch Stadium because of her. And we know in baseball there is the term the five-tool player, right? And that's a player that can do everything. And so I've always patterned my career after the five-tool player in baseball. I always said I want to go in knowing how to do everything. I want to, try to be everything, because number one, I'm afraid to get fired and be broke again. And so I wanted to be the last person that they ever thought about firing. So in that vein, I always said, I want to go in working from a place of yes. And like Kirsten was saying, it is hard to say no in this business, but if I'm being honest, as a woman, and on top of that, as a woman of color, you really can't afford to say no much. You really do have to go in and say, I'm going to be a yes person. I'm going to go in and I'm going to figure it out, even if I don't know. Because when I was offered the opportunity to join the sidelines for the NFL on Fox, David Hill was the president of Fox Sports then, and he used to watch, I did this show called Good Day LA here in Los Angeles, and he used to watch that show and invited me over to meet with him. And I'm thinking, what does he want? What does he want to meet with me for? And he said, just come over here. So I did, and he said, I'd like for you to start doing games for us. And I said, well, why? I don't do sports. And he said, yes, but you know how to tell stories, and that's what I want. And so I said, okay. And then I knew I had to do a crash course in X's and O's, because I was a football fan, but I didn't know the game. But I just thought, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna say yes, and I'm gonna figure this out. And I think as women, we know how to do that. We multitask like a mug every day, right? Absolutely. So I've always thought that. I never got into this business wanting to do entertainment. I thought I was gonna be Christian Amanpour. I thought I was gonna be a world correspondent. Honey, you couldn't tell me nothing. And then I was at CNN. I went to CNN because I thought, they were the gold standard in news for me. I got the opportunity to work there, so I just said yes. And they started watching me at Entertainment Tonight and came to me and said, we want you here. And I thought, this is entertainment. I've never done it. But I also thought Entertainment Tonight was the gold standard of entertainment. So why not? And so I said yes. And I think that has served me. I'm a journalist to my core. And I've always said it does not matter what I'm talking about, whether I'm talking about Bashar al-Assad, if I'm talking about, Clayton Kershaw or Kim Kardashian. I need to know who, what, when, where, why, how to put it together and put it on TV. So I always said I'm a journalist first. I am that person, and I will always be that person no matter what I do, but I'm always going to try to work from a place of yes.
I love that concept, place of yes and utility player.
Yeah.
But I had to establish relationships with every single one of those players, and they genuinely are going to judge you and they're going to push you because they don't necessarily think that we do belong there. They recognize that yes, there's television today and there's going to be a broadcast team, there's people that come in, but ultimately they're like, we're the professionals and we know our game, and I want to see you prove to me that you know my game as well, essentially. And I had to do that. So my first year here, as I mentioned to you guys, I 3 strikes you're out, you run the bases, all that fine. And I had to study every single day. I had a baseball tutor who was a player at the University of San Diego. My mom was in grad school and she met some guy there and was like, he's on the baseball team, you need to tutor my daughter. And we would sit twice a week and he would break down the sport for me. He taught me how to score a game. He taught me all of these different things. I would sit with the manager, I'd sit with players, and I'd ask them questions. My first year was 2021, so it was technically still deemed a COVID season. So everything was at a distance. And I had to beg, like literally beg with my producer, like, you guys have to let me go on the road. Because the only way I'm going to have success is if I can build the relationships with these players.
That's so important.
Yeah, because right now they're looking at me as this random black girl who came in to work and is like, so where did she come from? Who saw her? She did what sports? So I literally had to, and when I started traveling, no one told me the rules of working for a team. I had worked on the league side before, and even when I was covering the Lakers, it was still from the broadcast side, and this was my first time working for the team. I traveled on the team plane. I'm with the team all the time. And so they would go early, and I didn't know what to do, so I would take the bus, and I would get there, and at this point, even my producer wasn't allowed to travel, so it was literally just me. So imagine you go from no traveling, you're at a distance, and all of a sudden this girl's like in the back of the plane, she's with you guys, we're like, okay, sure, let's do this. And I would sit there and I'd read my notes and I'd ask questions, and they saw me like, oh, she's trying to learn. As much as maybe it was a struggle at first, as Jess said earlier, I was trying so hard to be someone else. Whether it was the previous reporter who had years of experience and knowledge over me, whether it was trying to fit into this mold. Look, you guys see me, I'm black, tall, was an athlete, all these different things, but like when you look at who is the fans at Dodger Stadium, and even if you look at those players on the team, no one looks like me. And no one looks like me who's covering this sport. So it's like, except for Jess. And now I have Jess. So we have a turn of events, we get there. But I mean, there are so few women, and there are so few women of color. I'm the only black sideline reporter in this entire sport. So when I walk into a stadium, yes, there are women who are there, and that's a beautiful thing, but there are no women who look like me. There are no women who have experiences like me. So I sit there and I take all of that in, and then I'm with all of these men who can, joke around and be one of the boys and mess around in the locker room and have jokes with, but I can't do that. It's not appropriate for me to do that. And also, like, that's not who I am. I don't want to be your best friend. I want to come in here, I want to do my job, and I want us to have respect for each other, and then I want to be about my day.
That's a good point. When I covered Major League Baseball, I think that was the toughest sport for me to cover as
Yes.
a woman. I do believe that. Yeah.
It's, as much as I think things are changing, and I carry such pride knowing that, like, I'm gonna be honest, after my first year here, I was like, this maybe wasn't my best decision. Like, maybe we need to go our separate ways. And I spoke with the executives here, and they wanted me to stay. They believed in me to stay. I even talked to some of our players. I actually had a conversation in spring training with Mookie Betts, and he was like, you know, when you got here, my entire family was so excited. You know, like, we want you here, we want you to be successful here. And I told him, I was like, you know, I appreciate that, but like my first year, like you barely spoke to me. So like, you know, you're a leader in this clubhouse and you're saying that you want me here. And when you work in different sports, it's different dynamic. You know, when I work in football locker rooms with football players, the majority of the athletes are black. And I think just, I don't know how I was raised in the South, and you see someone who looks like you recognize them, and you have this kind of, I got you, you got me, and that's that. Coming into this space, you know, I came in thinking, okay, we have a black manager, we've got Mookie Betts. At that time, we had David Price, who, you know, was probably gonna be a Hall of Fame black starting pitcher. And, you know, like you had all these people, and I was like, wow, we have a black ownership, and Magic Johnson. So I was like, this is a really diverse team. And then I got inside, and I was like, interesting. Those people I just named, that was it. And like, all of the coaching staff was white, most of the players are white or Hispanic, and then you have also the dynamic of, you know, you might see a black person and then you realize they don't speak English, and you're like, oh, interesting, we are not the same. So it's, you know, it takes time to come into this space. And when I went into the Lakers locker room my first day, they brought me to LeBron James. They're like, LeBron, this is Kirsten, she's gonna be working with Mike Trudell. If Mike doesn't ask you the first question, she's going to. And he shook my hand and he was like, I got you. I want you to be successful, I got you. Whatever you need, I'm here. That did not happen in this sport. That's not the culture of this sport. And as much as and maybe it's not fair for me to have expected Mookie or David Price to be that guy, when I came in here, which it wasn't fair for me to do that, I recognize that, but I did. I thought they were going to be, you know, the leaders in this clubhouse, and they were going to be like, she's here, she's one of us, we are going to give her the respect that she deserves. And luckily, we were able to have a conversation. I told him, and that's the other thing you have to learn, like you have to speak up for yourself. You have to demand respect. And when you need help, you have to ask for help. That was a weakness for me. I felt like I could never ask for help. I just wanted to figure everything out on my own. And I came into a space where I was like, I am going to burn into the ground. Like, I was getting smaller. If you look at pictures of me from my first year, I probably was the size of a twig. Like, my mental health, I was crying every single day. I would get here, I find a way to stop crying. I'd go into makeup. They would be like, is she okay? And I'd be like, it's fine. I'd come in here with a smile on my face. I'd do my job. And then I'd go home and I'd cry again. Like, my whole family was like, all hands on deck. Like, we need to figure out this child. What is happening? So things are going to push you. They're going to push you to the edge. But if you want to be in these spaces and you demand that respect in these spaces, they're just entirely worth it. So for me to sit down with Mookie, to have that conversation, I'll never forget it. We were in the dugout at spring training, and I was just like, you know, I expected and I thought that you were going to do something and be this guy in this clubhouse, and he apologized. He was like, you know what? I'm sorry that I wasn't there to uplift you and to make you know that like you deserve to be here as a person of color, as a black person, as my sister in this space. Like, I want you to know that you belong, and I'm going to make sure that I can do whatever it takes to make that you feel comfortable in this space. And he did that, and I will tell you, he is a leader in this clubhouse. And then everyone saw that, and it was like, okay, she's in the fold, she's a part of this, and so now I can feel just comfortable, and I can be more of myself. I feel trusted in this space, and these guys have literally welcomed me in, I think, like a sister now. And so sometimes it just takes one person to do that. It could be a coach, it could be anyone in different spaces, but to know that I think you have that support and just kind of bond and connection goes beyond. And so you do need, you know, the people around you. You need your women confidants along your side. I have some of my best friends in this industry who I would not survive without them. But I also have to have the support of the men I'm around, because I do work in predominantly male spaces. So I think that's just...
I will go right along with that. I actually see Kirsten every Monday. But part of my job is I ghostwrite for our player analysts. So all of the players who are on NFL Network, who used to be in the league, Whenever they have an article on NFL.com, surprise, is me. But I do have to collaborate with them a lot with writing those articles, and the biggest thing was gaining their trust. To know, I'm writing for LaDainian Tomlinson. His name's on the top of that article, not mine. And so, at first, he and others are very tentative and hesitant to work with me because how is she going to portray me, right? So I think being in a position where you have to gain their trust and say, I'm looking out for you just as much as you're looking out for me, but also respecting me, and that relationship goes both ways. And I think, especially working with professional athletes, when they realize, I'm just not in here to
Mess around.
hang out. I'm not, this is not like a holiday camp for me. I'm doing my job, and I'm not bothering you because I want to bother you. I have to talk to you and to do my job. And I think one of the biggest turning points, that's probably 5 years in or so, Steve Smith Sr., who has a very strong personality, if you see him, but this was during COVID, maybe not, I don't know, scratch that. But he came to me and said, I would like to write an article about my journey with depression and mental health. And I knew at that point that I was doing my job correctly, that he trusted me to help him tell that story, especially with someone like him who is so strong and can be standoffish, to be honest. A lot of the professional athletes can be because they have to be,
I remember that article, it was incredible.
Oh,
So great work.
Thank you.
Great.
But at that level of athletics, you have to think you're the best. So there is that level of that wall is up. But gaining trust of professional athletes that you work with, but anyone that you work with is a huge key, and you just have to find the right way to do that for you. And for me, that was sharing my personal experiences with them and just letting them know, and anyone that I work with, that we're all a team here. Whatever company you're working with, you're trying to put the best product out, especially in media, and that a collaborative effort is definitely the way to go, whether in whatever part you can play is where you fall in line.
Great answers. I learned so much just from that one question alone. That was awesome. The next topic I want to talk about, in reading through your bios and asking questions, that we have had so many, the first to do XYZ. We love that. We applaud that. That was a really hard thing to accomplish. And all four of you have blazed so many trails for all of us in this room and people not in this room, both men and women, to get to where they want to be. How do we make the sports and entertainment industries, instead of it continuing to being, just kind of touched on this earlier, not just keep being the first, but for that to become normalized, to be that next woman up that Brooke touches on in her articles? How do we keep moving forward? How do we keep going at it?
Also, just one quick thing. So I work with Scott Pioli. He's a former executive for the New England Patriots, and he is an advocate, an ally for women, minorities, anyone. He'll knock down that door for you and help in whatever way you want. He's on the board of so many things. Anyway, so I told him about this next woman up, and he said, Brooke, call me one day. I see you're amplifying other women in the NFL, but when I go to your author page on NFL.com, it says, Brooke Cersosimo, no biography. And he was like, I'm not going to work with you until you write your own biography, because you need to take credit for what you were doing as well. And I was like, and as someone who works behind the scenes, I was like, yeah, but I don't really care, but I should care, and I think that's important. Women were taught to just kind of, maybe that's not right to say, but a lot of us are taught to kind of throw credit at others and say, well, yeah, it was me, but it was also you. It was mostly you. I didn't really do anything. And, you know, that's great to give credit to where credit's due, but it is very important for women in this space to say, no, you know what, I did that, and I deserve to be here, as much as giving credit as well, but I don't know. Kind of stuff.
Well, no, but I think too, I think to get more women, we need women in those positions. So
Absolutely.
I think, you know, we're all like in a position where you see or you're reading and so you're thinking, oh, okay, we're getting there. Where I get like frustrated, whether it's a Scott Pioli or honestly leadership here within the Dodgers, where like you see women or you see men that are incredibly supportive of women. That's the only way that this changes. And I get frustrated because I've worked at companies where I'm always the only woman in the room that's making decisions. So I'm always the one stopping to be like, but Mookie just had a baby. Like, why aren't we like talking about his family life? Or and like I'm getting looked at like, yeah, but he just went 0 for 5. Or like, just the focus changes. I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong, but like different perspectives. And if we need more women all across the board in all the positions, we need those women in leadership because it helps so much just to have that one voice. It's like, hey, we thought it, and then all of a sudden mind's blown, and the men in the room are like, most of the time, like, yeah, like that'd be awesome. I've got a daughter, I've got a wife, like they have, like they get it, but it takes that person to actually be in the freaking room.
Absolutely.
And that's where I get frustrated is we need those women in the room at leadership positions.
To kind of piggyback on what Brooke said, my 8-year-old cousin Bailey, it sounds on the surface juvenile, but it's so important when you say we have to take credit for the things we do. She always comes up to me and she says, say yay and clap for me. Which means like I did something good. So I say that to myself a lot when I do something, I say yay and clap for me. Like I just did, that's badass. Like, so it really is important to take ownership of who we are, take ownership of the things that we do and do well, because sometimes you're the only person clapping for yourself and you do need to do that. And just to also expound on what Jess was saying earlier, I think when we go into these situations where you are breaking a glass ceiling or you are a first, because there always has to be a first in order for there to be things that follows. I know I stand on the shoulders of giants in my industry in entertainment and television. But you have to go in being very transparent with the people, the men in the room, the people that are doing the hiring, and letting them know. I know the conversation I had with ownership and executives when they were naming me co-host, and I am the first Black woman in the show's 43-year history. The conversation I had was, this moment is bigger than me. And you all have to realize that. You all need to be willing to embrace that and not just do the one-off, like, we did it, see, we did it. No. This is not just, this is gonna happen for Nischelle and it's never gonna happen again. Diversity and inclusion is not just a cute idea, it's necessary. It's the life we live, it's the walk we walk, it's what has to be done in order for us to keep moving forward. And that's a real conversation that I had. I was scared to have it, but I had it. And I said to them, if you are not willing to know that this moment is bigger than just saying me, we can't do this. I can't do this, because I'm not, like I wasn't raised to be somebody's token anything. And so I think we have to take power of our voice, take ownership of the moment, and really be honest. It's not easy to do. And we do have to have those men who lean in. We just do. You have to have partners, you have to have people who believe in you, who stand up for you, who stand in the gap for you every single day. Because it's still a battle every single day. Everyone here is accomplished, but I know that everyone here still has those conversations, still battles to have their voice heard, still battles to have, fair and inclusive reporting and time, all of those things. It doesn't stop, ever.
Or you just sometimes have to fight to have your name on something. Like, as a woman, it constantly is an uphill battle, it feels like. But it is a battle that is completely worth it if you want something so badly. And when you want to be in spaces like this, you're going to have to fight, you're going to have uncomfortable conversations. I mean, I recently had to have a conversation because I was working at a stadium, I'm not gonna go into the specifics, but I was working and there are 2 hosts and my name was not on the door for our dressing room. And while that might be something that is just kind of like, okay, whatever, but like, if you're going to hire me to be here, you need to respect me to be here, because ultimately I am sacrificing my time to be here with you guys. I'm choosing to do this for you all. So I deserve to have the respect as my white counterpart whose name is on this door. So it's like, that's something very little, but it's something that also.
But it's
really
not.
that way.
It's
Thank
not
you.
little.
You're right.
It's not.
Because it's one of those things where I had to kind of take a step back to be like, I know I'm not crazy. Like, and the thing is, what's also crazier is like, my co-hosts didn't even really notice. Like, they were kind of just like, oh, well, okay. And I'm like,
But that just goes a layer deeper to what you're saying too.
Yes.
And I think that we have to also be honest as women, as black women, as white women, as Asian women, as women of color. We have to be simpatico with each other.
Yes.
Because our relationships throughout history have been a little fraught and a little, and I don't know if I should say, no. You have to be my sister.
yes.
We have to get past that and go deeper, because a lot of times you might be like, well, let me align. I've had that happen in my job where people have come and then apologized, like, you know what, they were trying to paint you as the angry black person they were trying to be, and I didn't speak up, and I'm sorry. So we have to do better as women together before we battle all that other stuff.
Exactly, because
out there.
ultimately, like, the only way, like, I was not also going to be put into a situation in which they were going to put the two female co-hosts against each other. And now we have a competitive energy, and you have all these people above us, and they're like, what's going on? I'm not doing that. The only person I'm competing with is myself, okay? Like, that is something I'm very adamant about. If it's not for me, it is not for me. If the opportunity is for someone else, that is just fine. I'm rooting for them. I want the absolute best for them, because as much as you guys will learn, there will be doors that open for you and there will be doors that close. You have to walk into the door that's open for you because someone chose you and believes in you to be in that position, and you should give them your all in those spaces.
And it's okay if not everybody like likes you. I feel like that's
Yes.
like, or like agrees with you, or
Yeah.
says, oh my gosh, you know, Kirsten is so agreeable and she just does like my that's like something that I've had to put, because I have to push. Like, you always feel like we're not trying to like.
We don't scare you.
Yeah.
It's worth it, I promise.
You're always pushing, and I've had to learn is, you know, and I feel like age has brought that to me, but like there was a huge part of my life where like I really cared about what people thought, like legitimately. And not that that's completely gone away. I still, you know, you want people to like you, but you get caught up when you're trying to push for something that like people are gonna talk. You can like feel it, like you can like feel. Just like, I don't give a crap anymore. Like, you can say whatever you want, but like, this is important to me. Like, this sounds so petty or whatever. Like, it's those voices in your head or someone saying something, and they will.
Yeah.
And you work too hard to have a voice not to use it.
Yeah.
You work too damn hard. Like,
Seriously.
I will say, it feels like, yes, we have a lot of obstacles as women in sports, but and maybe this was me being a naive 25-year-old moving out to Los Angeles from South Dakota, because, you know, maybe one other person has that story. But I did feel that being a female in sports made me very different, and it did. But I also took that as something that was good. Yes, and if you approach whatever that you're going into that way and coming in as, you know, I can bring something, I know I can, and this is why, and I'll show you why. I think that can also play in your favor as, you know, it is hard, it's very hard, but there are a lot of things that we can bring to whatever space that we're in that, you know, people might not always think about. But if you come in with that confidence and the knowledge that, you know, that you're going to do well, you can, and you absolutely will.
I've been very fortunate to have other women in sports open their arms to me from day one, which is important. Yes. I mean, when I started doing the NFL, I walked in and Pam Oliver, who is the gold standard to me, could have been like, no, this is my territory, I'm not, but she opened her arms to me. She brought me under her wing. She gave me all the tricks of the trade. She ran everything down for me. She said, whatever you need, I'm here because we're gonna go into this together. That, when I tell you how invaluable that is and how fantastic that is and how that made me settled in so many ways because I was a wreck, like being that, and I love that you all have that, is invaluable. Be that for somebody. Be that for somebody else, because it means more than you could ever think it does to that person.
Exactly. Just find your village within these spaces, because you know you are going to feel alone at times, but if you can go to other women in this industry, understand, look, all of us have such different life paths, but ultimately we're all on this stage and we've all been able to kind of interact with each other, maybe in different spaces, and we'll continue to do so. And it's really incredible to know that you have someone who just understands, that you can lean on. And that's women, you know, I have some friends, as I mentioned, look, I'm 30 years old. Two of my best friends and mentors in their space in the NFL is with Fox, and they are like big sisters to me. But they've also experienced a lot of things, and I've been getting to learn the women in baseball now. Look, my transition into this space was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, and I didn't necessarily have the support that I wish I had coming in that first year. I had the support from my male counterparts, and I had the support from my producer who believed in me in all these different things, but it was very hard for me to kind of get my footing in this space as a woman. I didn't feel like I was getting that woman support that I needed. But ultimately, I was able to find women in this space who care so deeply for me, who want to talk out ideas, who want to help me with my craft. You know, when Jess first got to this organization, we got wine in Arizona, and she was just like, you know, like, I'm here for you. Like, I want you to be the best, and I want to help you be the best. And I also think that you're doing amazing, all these different things. And
There a year earlier, I hear about our first year, I'm like, I wasn't there yet.
that first year was, whoo, it's fine. We have come a long way. But I just say all of that is, you know, of course, we're all going to have our village, our friends, and our family, our community who kind of keeps us grounded. But it's so valuable to just really meet the people alongside us, because it's the people in this room and in these seats right now who are going to be maybe your producer, maybe your boss, maybe they're going to be in senior leadership. Like, that's the other thing, is this is a very small industry, so be very respectful to those around you, because you never know who you're going to be asking for a job for one day, or who you're going to be assigned to cover, or you need a favor. I mean, an example of that is in grad school, one of my classmates ended up being the director of communications for the Sparks. And when I needed a job, I was like, okay, I have some extra days on my contract that they kind of don't really want to pay me out, but they have to pay me out. But if I can work for you guys, and he was like, yeah, come be a sideline reporter. So then I just went back to Spectrum and was like, so he agreed that I could be a sideline reporter. Can you guys pay for those dates since they're on your network? And they were like, yeah, done. Easy. So it's like, those are the relationships and the connections that are so valuable. So get to know everyone in this space, because if you guys aren't in sports already, you're going to be in sports, or you're going to be in different spaces, and this is how you'll get the next job. So just get to know everyone.
As my mom told me, sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that plays a big role in this industry. Everyone, let's give our esteemed panelists a great round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. We're so fortunate. Now, as I said earlier when we started off, everyone has very busy lives with a lot of things to do, as we all just talked about for the last 45 minutes. Nischelle is now going to leave. We are so grateful you were here today. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much,
Thank you for being here today. Thank you, everybody.
One more round of applause, everybody. Thank you so much, Nischelle. And I think we have just a few minutes for any questions. Does anybody have a question in the room? Love it. Let's go with right here in the middle. I think we can run that mic over with the pink blazer on. If you could say your name and your question loud enough for everyone to hear, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Jacob. All of you guys are very accomplished women in journalism. The four of us are journalism students at Loyola Marymount University. We're juniors and seniors, so I wanted to ask you guys how you would recommend that we bridge that gap after graduation, as we come into graduation, and how we kind of go into the professional world into sports journalism, and what you guys would suggest that we can look forward to and what to do.
I would say, depending on what you really want to do. So if you want to be on camera, going to constantly hear, you got to get your reps. You know, there's this idea of you have to go out and shoot a reel and all these different things. So as much as I didn't take the local news route, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend applying to different networks, hopefully getting maybe like a 2-year deal, just getting your feet wet. Maybe that small market doesn't necessarily have to be, if you guys are from California, obviously up the coast there's so many different cities and options and local news stations. Pick a place, ideally, in which you have access to covering major sports. So maybe, yeah, you'll be doing your traditional high school sports, things like that, but if you can't be close enough to major sports teams, college sports teams are huge. And obviously, if you look at kind of what's happening in college football, college baseball, you name it, find cities which you have access to those sports. So for example, Knoxville, Tennessee, this is again just an example. If you're there, not only are you going to be covering the University of Tennessee and all their sports, which are major SEC sports, you'll also have access to Nashville. You've got the Predators, you've got the Titans, you've also got minor league baseball there. It's also a great city, but you know. So it's just like you want to pick places in which your stories are going to be getting your foot into these major sports realistically. So kind of build your reel, get the experiences. It also allows you to get your reps and make your mistakes at a smaller network. So I recommend that if maybe that's not the interest in the career path. Starting in production is amazing. And I think Nischelle hit something really powerful of understanding all of the different sides to this industry. I started as a production assistant. I was an associate producer. I worked as a marketing manager in sports for the NFL and international team, traveling the world with them. Like, that was an unexpected job as well, which literally changed my life. So don't be afraid to be on that side of the industry as well, and understanding, you know, how you storytell, how you create the stories, how you reach out to the clubs or whoever you're trying to work with to get in touch with their PR to then have access to do an interview. Like, don't be afraid of that kind of stuff either. That probably put you in a bigger city, and that's of interest. I mean, I didn't want to go to a small market, so I recognize, well, I can give this advice now. I maybe would have done things a little bit differently. But yeah, just kind of apply to a bunch of different places. Also, writing is huge. Like, ultimately, like, if you are in all of our spaces today, we do a little bit of writing, and she does a lot of writing, but we write our scripts for whether it's in a prompter. I'm writing my story for what's in my head. So, like, you're writing out things. You are, mind blank, sorry. I was like, where was I going with this? You're kind of producing yourself. So I personally, like, with most of my jobs, actually, I don't have a stage manager per se, or I don't have a field producer with me anymore because, you know, budget cuts. So I'm like down here by myself. So everything from, you know, where I'm sitting, where I'm going, like, trying to understand what the producer in studio, how he has the studio team set up, and like, I'll ask questions, you know, what's the conversation after this? How do you want me to tag? Things like that. Like, I'm producing myself, whether it's with the interviews, all of that kind of stuff. So you'll realize you end up doing a little bit of everything, so it's very valuable to understand a little bit of everything. So
I'll just chime in quickly from an editorial standpoint. If you're interested in sports writing, there are freelance jobs everywhere. There's so many websites out there. Just start writing and start applying, because any advice that you can get about any sports. I mean, growing up in South Dakota, my first job at the newspaper, they're like, you're going to cover the rodeo, and I'm like, what? And ask questions. Just don't ever be afraid. If you don't understand something, the worst thing you can do is me covering bull riding, being like, just making it up, because the people who know bull riding are going to know that. So yeah, just that. And then I would also say, just read a ton of examples and articles. Go on ESPN, go on NFL.com, go, if you're into news, go on CNN, Fox, whatever, and just see how the people who have been doing it for decades write. Yes, and that could be the most valuable thing, is just reading other people's examples.
It's a little trickier, I think, with on TV though, because you don't want to be someone else. You ultimately want to be yourself and present as yourself. However, that's going to come with time. Like, you're who you are. If I watched my reel at 23 years old, and I did the whole thing where I would be outside of Staples Center, and now crypto, whatever, crypto.com. And I would go stand outside of Staples, and I'd have my friend hold my phone, and I'd get a little microphone and hook it up, and I would do my little stand-up and take it home, put it on a reel. I even like built a green screen in my apartment one time, because I was like, oh, well, then I can put any background on it. So you get creative. Those are reps. While they're not like professional reps, they're reps. And now we live in a time of social media. So like, you guys can get on TikTok, and you can get on YouTube, and you can make these videos, and you realize like a following is very valuable now. It wasn't necessarily valuable when we were getting started. Now, I mean,
we didn't really have cell phones though.
okay, I have
Very high quality.
All right, you're aging yourself.
I have the
a
old
cell phone.
LG. We weren't like uploading the,
You only have a few years on me.
Nope.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I wasn't uploading my like Nokia
That's
videos.
They had Razor flip phones back in the day. But no, you have a lot more access with your cellular devices now, and so use those to your advantage. You can make a stunning reel, get a good microphone, go out there, and since you're at LMU, I imagine you already are, but if you're not, go cover the teams there. Cover the women's basketball team, cover the men's basketball team, cover the baseball team. Do you guys have football?
No football.
No football, right? And softball. Yes.
Softball.
Cover these sports. Like, cover the volleyball team. Like, ultimately, you guys are in a space where the next generations of athletes are your classmates. So get to know them, because then it also builds relationships. Then when you are, I'm just going to use Cole Roberts as an example. Cole is now playing in the Arizona Diamondbacks organization. So say if you know Cole from school and you're like, hey Cole, I actually really want to do a story on X, Y, and Z, he's going to give you the interview. So it's just like, those are the relationships that you're going to grow with them. So just get to know them. Maybe if you need to get a job on campus, work in the athletic department. Work with all of the athletes. Look, I am in a male-dominated space, but covering the Sparks, the WNBA, was one of the best times I have ever had, because like, those are my girlfriends. Like, those were my friends, you know? Like, it was just, it's a totally different experience, and obviously the coverage has gotten much bigger in female sports and women's sports, but like, we need more. And if you want to cover women's soccer, like, the NWSL is growing so much right now, and so there are jobs at different teams and things like that. So you just have to look. Teamwork Online is a great resource that I'm sure you guys have all used and seen. Also, if you want to be a little crazy like I was, look up people's emails and email them. Listen, I'm quick to be like, okay, so I saw this email, reach out. I probably hounded the like VP of communications at the Rams starting in grad school. I think I emailed him like maybe like once every other month. Don't get crazy, because people will ignore your emails. But like, I would be like, are there any internship opportunities? Actually, when I was in grad school, I emailed every VP of communications for every NFL team. I did have access to the little black book that they have because I was an employee before I went to grad school, but, you know.
She'll share those emails. No.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you have to find a way. And also, like, say if you want to work in baseball, like, I'm happy for, if anyone wants to come spend a day with me here and do it all the time, like, see what it's like day in and day out. I usually will ship you upstairs too to see what's happening in the booth, and you know, it's really cool to see, because there are so many different sides of this industry. Whether it's, yes, you see us on camera and you kind of see the glitz and the glam, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, but maybe you don't want this, and that's okay, because also like Allie does an insanely cool job and gets to work with the players, and you know, is making sure that they're doing is working with all of the different broadcast companies and things like that. Like, it's all very hands-on in different spaces. What I do is very different than from what Jess does, but it's also really cool because I get to learn from what Jess does. She'll come down sometimes and talk to the guys, and we have two very different views on this sport because she played. So I never played any field sport or diamond sports. So I get to watch her interact with the guys and how they kind of go about and playing in different positions and how they are in the cage.
And just by watching her, I'm learning from her and seeing also how she tells the stories of the players. You know, how I tell it, it's gonna be different because we're just two different individuals.
Good.
Which is good, and that's what brings, you know, diversity to broadcasts and to different spaces. And, you know, we have an incredible producer who lets us be. Yes, he guides us, of course, but he truly wants us to bring who we are to the broadcast. And so we have, 5 analysts? 2 play-by-plays, 5 analysts, and every single one of them brings something different. I like to tease that I'm the only constant on the broadcast, but I'm just kidding. So in my negotiations, I was like, you might have to pay me more, because like I'm here all the time. I'm just kidding. But I say all of that because it's what makes our broadcast, I think, even stronger, because you get to take in the sport in so many different ways. We have guys who have won World Series and all these different things and have established a type of iconness, I don't know what's a word, but whatever, in this space. And then we have, you know, people, we have literally every probably diversity hit possible. We've got young white male, old white male, black female, Hispanic female, Asian male. Like, we have all of it, and that's what makes black male, like, that's what makes the group so wonderful, because you get to hear and learn about baseball from so many different experiences in so many different ways. So I really just encourage all of you guys to kind of continue to find your voice, be in these spaces, get all the reps you need, the experiences you need, because it's only going to make you even more talented when the time does come. All these other questions. I want to
I was going to say, I think we have time for one more question. Let's go in the back on the left.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Bridget Lucas, and I am also in my 30s, and I'm a nurse, so I'm changing careers. And I just wanted to say it's never too late to pursue your true passion, no matter what age or where you come from. And you know, the panel, they come from different journeys. And so I would like to know, for resume purposes, mine is all medical, but I've changed my journey by trying to go to events like this. So someone with 10 years of work experience already versus a young college student who's still in school, getting ready to graduate, what advice can you give for someone like myself, like the solid rock foundation of your journey, and it's only going to go up from here? So what advice on changing careers?
Well, first, I feel like I'm going to get emotional up here, but thank you, honestly. Like, what you just said in moments like that, I mean, I think that's what pushed me to stay. Because there were so many people who, well, social media has such negativity on there, but there were so many people, and like young women and young women of color, who would come up to me and would be like, wow, like my daughter wants to be just like you. Like, I want to be like you when I grow up. And so just when you have moments like that, and when you question, like, I was a wreck, but like when you question yourself in certain ways, it's hard to refine yourself. And so when you have people who come up to you and who say things like that, it's so rewarding and so valuable. So thank you, honestly. I'm like about to cry here, but like, honestly, thank you, because those are the little moments that remind you that like you are on a true path and your true purpose is here. So that being said, you have a very interesting space, and you're going to present a very interesting light coming into sports. Obviously, with sports, there's a lot of injuries, a lot of things happen, and I think you really need to tap into like the knowledge that you have from working in medicine. And so it might make sense, you know, to be, you know, now when you watch ESPN or when you watch certain stories, like you constantly have to go to someone to break down an injury of some sort. What does this look like? I think Aaron Rodgers right now is a perfect example. How on God's earth is he coming back this fast? I have absolutely no idea. Like, you know, but from a medical mindset and a medical background, you can potentially understand, you know, how the body heals in certain ways, what maybe that injury looked like. And so I would recommend kind of tapping into like merging those worlds together at first, because that will give you the leg up.
I'm doing that now, actually. I'm doing that now.
Okay.
I'm doing a remote NFL a film review
Oh,
where
nice.
I mark in the film when the injuries took place.
Nice.
But it's not sports broadcasting, but it's still my foot in the door, you know?
But that's a perfect start. You know, like ultimately you do kind of have to, you have to get your foot in the door first. So the fact that you are working kind of in this space in which at least it is going to say a sports on your resume, and I think it's going to show just the proof of the transition to now come into like the on-air side. It's just going to be about getting those reps. You have someone who
Stefania Bell, she works at ESPN, and she came like very similar background, like was involved in medical, but just was obsessed with the NFL and was like, I just want to get involved in this somehow. And so how everyone's talking about networking with players and creating relationships, she created relationships with team doctors and got in that route because it was the same language. And honestly, no one was speaking about that. And she didn't even mean to be on air. She just was the person everyone called to try to, can you translate this? You have these relationships. I can't get the team doctor to talk to me. It's personal information. Like for me, like having played, like there's certain, through softball, I'm able to like network and find that angle. Like your angle is, you've already got a decade of that. Like no one else, and this, I shouldn't say no one else, but very few and far between. So use that, and honestly, use that on your resume. Like create relationships with some medical professionals within sports. I mean, here in LA are some of the best in the world. Create those, put them on your resume. I mean, they will like mind blown because everyone's trying to get access to injury information. Like, how can you explain what is happening? And you'll use your resources to help explain it, but you're going to be able to come at an angle instead of always trying to have a relationship like everyone else with the quarterback, with Aaron Rodgers. Screw that. Like, go to medical professionals that actually understand the Achilles better than anyone else. Like, and you'll speak that language.
because then a network is going to call you to come and be a guest on their show to break down what is happening. Because again, none of us up here can do it. So it's like that, and then probably writing would be a great way to kind of just also start building that and kind of getting more used to storytelling in this way.
Use social media, put up like your opinions on what's happening to a big injury that everyone's trying to follow. Get people to try to like tweet that, or that's, I mean.
There's always the conversation in the NFL. I feel like we're in week 10 right now. There's always that conversation of like, there's so many injuries happening. Is it more than last year? Is it the same as last year? Is it the field? Is something like, you know, kind of, I guess we should ask, do you want to do medicine in sports?
No, I want to do
Okay, so you don't even want any medicine in this?
I'm not going to say no.
No, it's okay. You're allowed to say no.
I mean, I really want to do what you do.
Okay.
But I also don't mind merging both worlds into one, because I think that sports injuries
Mm-hmm.
are so big now these days, especially on the collegiate level. And so I want to merge the two. Like if I'm reporting about an injury, I want to teach the audience about what's going on behind the scenes regarding an injury and how they can expect, or where they can expect them to return. I want to do both. I want to try to merge in both. But
I would just say that starting out, doing both gives you a leg up. It establishes you in this space. Now, once you're in, then you can move away from it. You know, I think Cynthia Freeland's probably a good example at the NFL Network. So she worked in finance, like Wall Street finance, and had a passion for football. Got in. Would you say like comparing, like looking at the statistics of football?
Yes, she looks at a lot of like analytics and numbers, languages I don't. You put numbers in front of my face,
It
and
does
I'm like,
go
you
along.
lost me.
But she found a way to make it very digestible for a viewer, any viewer. So now while she does still focus on the analytical side, and that's kind of like her bread and butter, she's also someone who is on Total Access, on Good Morning Football, or not, on Game Day Morning, and all these different shows, who can just be analyst, reporter, all of it. So she's created a space for herself in which, of course, she has her true, I don't even want to say true self, but like her, I don't want to, her expertise, yes. I don't want to speak for her either, but like her expertise space. And now, and she transitioned maybe
like 30.
I think that's the message for everyone, is that like all of you are gonna have something that makes you stand out. And what I do hear a ton of is that everyone wants like Kirsten's job, like the one that is like you see
It's
it
hard.
on screen. No, but like I think the biggest advice, because that's a great question, but I think it applies to every single one of you, is there is something in your background, in your like, I mean, whether it was like high school, like I was really great at algebra, like whatever it is, like, or I'm really interested in this along with sports, like use that to stand out, because everyone, there's so many like women that want like one job. And I think by owning like what makes you like, okay, this is what actually makes me unique, my background, whatever it might be, own that and merge it with this passion to get into broadcasting.
Because you will stand out. Like I've always chosen to really tap into, I was an athlete, I am an athlete. And I use that whenever I'm in conversation with other athletes and put myself in their shoes, because while no, I haven't been in their shoes at the professional level here for the Dodgers, I have been in their shoes, you know, it doesn't matter, but because I have been in their shoes on a big stage, playing in a sport, winning state championships, playing Division I volleyball, whatever the case may be, traveling and playing volleyball overseas. I've been in those spaces, I know how to do what it takes to make it at a professional level. You use that, you lean into that, that's what allows you to connect to individuals, that's what allows you to be better, and it really is what allows you to stand out. So whatever that is for each, because as Jess said, every single one of you has that. It's now a matter of tapping into it, let it shine, because that's what's going to take you to the next level.
Wow. Are you all inspired just like I am? Let's give one big round of applause.